Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. This week I'm joining the Punched Out Thursday to Die For collaboration. We share ideas every Thursday on what to do with your punches and your dies. You will find links to all the other participants below, so be sure to check out all the channels for more tool inspiration. And here's the layout. I'm going to be creating a quick and easy grid. I'm going to be using punches and dies to set up the grid foundation and to embellish my layout. And here's what I'm going to be using. I have material from Crepe Paper's Busy Sidewalks collection, along with some wood grain paper from Simple Stories. And here are the tools. I have the grid template from Simple Stories. That is super cool. I have some square dies, a layered poinsettia die from Waffle flour. Anyway, I will talk more about all these tools throughout the process, and everything will be listed in the description box below. So here's what's on my desk, and the only preparation I did was cut that white cardstock the same size as that template there, and I've got clips on it. Those clips are from Creative Memories. I have my foundation page there, and I did gut a bit of it, and I matted my photo with it. I'm showing you the scraps from it. I also have 9 wallet-size photos that I will be cutting into a little bit later on. You're going to see I have the paper I've selected, of course, and some scraps of paper. I do want to point out I struggle a lot with the background paper in this particular process, so I'll be talking a lot about that. Here are the scraps of paper because, of course, I will be using my punches and dies. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut up a bunch of squares. So I'm showing you these layered square dies. These are from Stampin' Up, really old. I use them all the time, and they are fantastic if you're creating a grid. Obviously, you can cut 2-inch squares. That's what I'm doing right now with a straight trimmer or even a pair of scissors. But if you have square dies, it's a perfect time to pull them out. So what I'm doing here is cutting out 12 blocks. 9 of them are photos, 3 of them are in printed paper. Now, typically I do not create layouts with tiny photos like this, but for this case it's perfect because they are a bunch of photos from DIY gifts I made in 2020 at Christmas time. They're not good photos, but it is something I do every year, and I really like to document it. So for me, this is perfect. I get them all on one page. They're not taking up 10 pages in my album. So I'm almost done here. You're going to see in a moment I stop the film and I continue cutting. And you also may notice that for each one of these squares, I'm showing you right now, I did back them in a little bit of cardstock. Each one has 1 layer of cardstock behind it just to make them a little bit more substantial. My plan is to place the focal point photo in the middle. So what I'm doing right now is just playing around with placement. So more or less I started with the printed paper. I put it in 3 areas, kind of in a triangle, and now I'm playing around with placement of the photo, just looking for something that pleases my eye here. And once that's done, I decide, I think at this point, that I'm not exactly thrilled with the middle photo. You can see there that I've got the green in the background there. That's my plan at this point, but I'm not happy with the photo mat. So I decide to change it up, and I'm using this metallic paper from Holtz. So I'm going to back the photo here. This one I'm cutting down to 4 1/4 inches, which is just 1/4 inch larger than that photo in the middle that's taking up the middle 4 blocks. I am starting already to struggle with my background paper. My original plan was to have it the wood grain, then backed with that green polka dot paper, but that changes back and forth several times throughout the process. So now what I'm going to do is simply adhere these blocks within the grid. And I have to talk about this template here because I'm absolutely thrilled with it. Grids are typically easy layouts to create. However, if you want to place them straight on the page, it is a little fussy to do, especially if you have this many blocks on the page. Now I have here, let's see, 16 blocks. Now I'm going to be using 12 of them as small blocks, and I'm filling in the small ones. But anyway, essentially the more blocks you have, the more difficult it is to get it perfectly straight. For that center photo, what I did was I simply marked the corners from the template on the foundation page with pencil, and now I'm placing my photo. I did miss a bit of footage there, but what I did was I adhered the photo and then I simply erased the pencil marks from the middle. Still struggling with my foundation page. At this point, I'm thinking maybe I would prefer to have the wood grain paper behind that white block instead of the green one, and have the green one as my foundation page, but I can't decide at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and start embellishing my page. So I'm showing you the title there. These are shiny thickers. They're like glittery thickers. So I have DIY gifts. That's going to be my title. It's going to go right on top of the photo in the middle of that grid. And now I'm getting out this die set. It's a layered poinsettia die set from Waffle Flower, and it's new for me. I just got it at the scrapbooknerd.com and I'm thrilled with it. It cuts well, it embosses, and it totally fits my needs. I've been wanting a layered poinsettia die for over a year. I had been eyeing one, but it was almost $50, maybe even a bit more. Anyway, that was too expensive for me to invest in this type of die, which I would only use once a year for some Christmas pages. I don't mind investing more money in dies that I use every day, like circle dies, stuff like that. But this type of die, I don't want to spend a lot of money on. However, I want a die that cuts really well. This one is fantastic, and it cost me about $14, I think. Anyway, you saw there that the die came with 3 sets of flowers, each one a little bit smaller than the other. So I layered them on top of each other, and the biggest one I cut out twice, once in green, and I just offset it so it made it look like leaves. And in the middle, even though this die set does have a center, it was really, really tiny. I just punched it out with my with a small punch in that gold glittery paper to match that those alphas that I'll be using later on. So you can see that off camera I made a bunch more flowers. So I have a bunch to play with right now, and I am still struggling with the background paper. I'm trying to decide if I like the wood grain or the green polka dot as my background paper. So I'm just testing it out with the embellishments. I decide at this point I want the green polka dot paper to be my background paper. So what I do is I try to trim down this block, this wood grain paper, but there is a big hole in the middle, which makes it difficult for me to cut a straight block with it because it's more floppy. I decide to turn off the camera and concentrate and do it, but what I'm showing you there is I completely failed. So I went and found myself another piece of wood grain paper. Luckily I had the same color, and I cut myself another block. At this point I adhere it to the green polka dot paper, and I'm thinking I'm liking it at this point. So I'm centering it, but fortunately I do not gut the back, and you will see why later on. So I'm playing around with placement, and basically I'm creating a main cluster in the bottom right of the middle photo and a smaller one in the top left, and my title will go on that middle photo. What I decide to do is get out more dies. These ones here are, they're called Stitched Shapes by Stampin' Up. So each one of these shapes, I'm using small squares, has a stitched embossed edge around the edge. Super, super beautiful. So I cut out 3 small squares and I layer them up in the squares with patterned paper. So I'm happy with that. I do want more in my embellishment cluster, so I'm getting out another punch. This one is called a sprig punch from Stampin' Up. I try it in the Tim Holtz gold paper, but I decide to use this glittery paper, which is from Stampin' Up as well. You may have noticed I punched from the back. That glittery paper can be tricky when using your punches, simply because your punches can get jammed. Stampin' Up punches are fairly robust, but I still punched from the back of it, which made it a little easier, I think, anyway. My punch didn't get jammed. So anyway, you can see I've added them to the poinsettia clusters there, and I'm happy with that, so I am going to adhere my embellishment clusters. So I start with those squares there, and once again, I backed each one of these squares in a little bit of extra cardstock. I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but all of the small squares in this grid I backed with one layer of extra scrap cardstock just to make them a little bit more robust. I may have mentioned it, but in case I didn't, I'm mentioning it again. Now I'm adhering the poinsettia clusters, putting some of them up on foam adhesive, and I'm adding those sprigs to the clusters as well. I'm using an adhesive called Sticky Specs by Ecstasy Crafts to adhere the sprigs. It basically puts adhesive on detailed pieces when you place the detailed pieces on that yellow sticky paper. So there is what I have right now. The only thing really that this layout is missing at this point is journaling, and that's because I do plan to do it on the complimentary page, which you will see in the layout share at the end of the month. If you want to do journaling on this layout, I would recommend doing it either all around the outer edge of that middle big block. That's one option. You could put it within some of those small squares on the grid, or you could even replace the big square in the middle with journaling and the title. So those are a couple options for you. So I did add one sticker there from that Busy Sidewalks sticker book up in that top paper block. It's just a lady carrying a bunch of presents, and that is it. I do end up adding one more sticker, but mainly what I ended up doing was switching the background paper. What I did was I completely lifted off the middle part. I trimmed down that green polka dotted paper, and then I added one more sheet of wood grain. So I may be a bit overkill on the layering here. You do not have to do as many layers as me. I just didn't want to once again waste that wood grain paper that was in the middle. And the reason why I switched it up is because the photos were very busy. I had a lot of photos and a lot of different things happening, and actually a lot of bad photos on this page. And I found with the green polka dot paper, I loved it. I thought it was beautiful, but I found it too distracting. And I find with the wood grain paper behind, I have more attention on my photos, which is what this story is about. I hope you enjoyed this video. You saw the close-ups of those poinsettia dies. I'm telling you, I'm absolutely thrilled with them. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you would give me a thumbs up, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. If you are a subscriber, thank you very much. Don't forget to check out the other ladies. Their links are below, and have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.